Uh, Hello again, everyone. Hi there. Welcome once again to another YouTube Live on Cast Iron Wednesday, where, as you know, probably a number of YouTube channels number of the YouTube cooking channels dedicate Wednesday to making a video about cooking in cast iron. And why not? Because it's becoming something of a tradition, and it's one that I very much enjoy. I've had a lot of fun with these live videos, and I certainly hope other folks have as well. Yes, and greetings as well to William Hurt and Kyler Estes. Happy Wednesday. Yes, and likewise to everyone else as well. Wednesday after Easter as well. So that's one reason why, as I mentioned in the description of this video, I wanted to use up the rest of that leftover Easter candy. What's leftover Easter candy? Well, I don't have kids in this house, so we actually do end up with some leftover candy. And so rather than just simply scarf it all down, I figured we might as well get some use out of it, especially after I learned about doing this with the with leftover candy for, say, Easter or Halloween or Valentine's Day. And that is what they call a garbage cookie, essentially, where you take all of your junk food, all of that candy and the like, and cook it together all in one big, humongous cast iron cookie. And that actually is also how the subject gets into cast iron, because first of all, I really enjoy making these huge cookies in a cast iron skillet, and it's really so easy to do. I very much encourage anyone and everyone to give it a try if you haven't done so already, which is one reason I decided to do it live. Another reason is it gives me an excuse to talk about, obviously, to talk about cast iron, and in this case, huge cast iron pans, and why you need at least one. Now, I've shown off a few of my bigger pans on these YouTube on these YouTube videos, and I can only hope that's kind of encouraging folks to do their own investing in cast iron, although I'm not, believe me, I'm not being paid to endorse any particular brand, not even Lodge Cast Iron, as much as I like them. And in fact, my favorite brand of cast iron, as I've mentioned enough times before, is probably Birmingham Stove and Range, which went out of business in 1992. So, I have done a lot of videos with cooking with their cast iron, and that's what we have here tonight. For this cookie, once again, I have brought out one of my favorite kitchen users, and that would be good old Stumpy. Stumpy here is a 15-inch in diameter, number 14 size cast iron skillet, and he has made a lot of cookies. He has cooked some Thanksgiving turkeys and a bunch of pizzas. I've taken him on road trips. Good old Stumpy here has seen a lot of use, and I fully intend on getting a lot more use out of him as well. He is, as I mentioned, a number 14 size Century Series cast iron skillet. And I can tell that he's a Century Series from BS&R because he has a Made in USA mark on the back. That's really the giveaway that indicates that even though it only has a number 14 on the bottom, he is in fact a Century Series. Now, Birmingham Stove and Range, of course, they used especially with their number 12 and number 14 pans, they used their Red Mountain patterns to make molds for at least a few years after they went to their full automated production in the 1960s. And so that means with those pans in particular, they kept the number 12 and number 14 and it was a few years before they switched over to their number 14 15-inch size. So BS&R, of course, is hardly the only company to have produced those huge cast iron skillets, and Lodge is still making them today. But as we get into that, I figured might as well get started with what I do here every week, and that would be actually doing some cooking. And which, again, I really hope to show you how easy it is to produce your own big cast iron cookie. Let me get the angle here right on this. Oh yeah, I still have the brace. Let me see. What do we have here? Terry Chenef. Is that Smog? Now he's kind of like a generic dragon, and in fact, this is my oldest shirt. I bought this shirt at a science fiction convention in 1997, and somehow it has actually lasted this long. Bob S. I made a huge brownie in a cast iron pan last night, still trying to get the timing heat right. Well, yeah, brownies can be a little bit tricky, and in fact, making a cookie is much, much easier, quite frankly. And you know what they say? It's so easy, anyone can do it. So, love the spout, too. Okay, who else do we have? Bob S., Fluffy Otter, Jessica T., Ray Laws, and William Hurt. Time's up. Well, time's not up. In fact, we're just getting started. And hello again to everyone. So anyway, and yeah, in fact, because of this, it's time to take off this this brace because I don't want to get it dirty as I mix up this cookie here. Fortunately, I've gotten to the point where I can spend a lot of time without this brace, although I still need to... Although I still need to do my exercises to get my wrist in my hand back up to full strength again. Like, for instance, I cannot lift Stumpy by myself with this wrist, but I'm working on it. Anyway, as I mentioned, for a cast iron cookie, it is amazingly easy to do and something that I've really encouraged anybody to do for several reasons, not the least of which, well, let's show you how easy it is to mix the ingredients together. For starters, we have here 3 cups of flour. Boy, that was hard. To this, we have 1.5 cups of baking soda. I've tried making these things without the baking soda to produce a flatter cookie, and well, there weren't any real bubbles in it at all, so you do have to use a little bit of baking soda at least. We do want the inside to be not completely solid. And then from there, we measure out, where did I put that teaspoon? I always forget something. I put that back, so I'll fake it. We measure out just about half a teaspoon of kosher salt and half a teaspoon of an ingredient that I like using with these things, but I understand it's not used as often as it should be, and that would be cream of tartar. Cream of tartar is really good because it helps to solidify your baking, whether you're making a cake or a cookie or brownies or the like. It actually makes it more solid and less likely to collapse. And you don't need very much of it either, so it's really pretty much as simple as that. And having done that, that is really all of our dry ingredients. From here, it is absolutely necessary to whisk the dry ingredients together. Now, I learned this the hard way, and it took several years, really, before I understood how important this step is, because what we're doing is not only are we mixing the ingredients together, we are also getting air into the batter, and that certainly helps for this thing to rise and become less dense. So, again, do not miss the opportunity to mix your dry ingredients together. Now, as I mentioned here, you know, I was at Walmart not too long ago, and I saw that they do sell those so-called giant cookies as well, which are flat and maybe somewhere between 11 and 12 inches in diameter. And the one I saw at Walmart cost at least $9. And I'm sure that if you look, you could probably find one there for a lot more, much greater price than that. And all I can think of is $9 for that thing. It's so much less expensive and so easy to make one at home that really there's absolutely no reason to buy one of those from Walmart, especially when it's just this easy. And that takes care of our dry ingredients. Now from here, time to break out another bowl. Oh. Gotta be careful. Let's move this to the side. Get this out of the way. And from here, we work on our wet ingredients. And there are really only a couple more ingredients to go with this, in fact. Did I remember to take that thing out of the fridge? I did not. Okay. And for the wet ingredients, we use some softened butter. I can only hope that I was able to soften this enough. For a cookie of this size, we use 2 sticks or 1 cup. 1 cup, yes, 1 cup of softened butter. Well, it must be softened because it's actually starting to leak out of the wrapper here, so we're off to a decent start at least. Yeah, this butter is actually pretty soft, so we will deal with that. And to this, we add some sugar. In fact, we add 2 cups of sugar. Now, here's the part where the difference, what I'm using here is a 1 1/4 cups of brown sugar and 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. And I learned from watching YouTube videos, you know, doing my research, that brown sugar versus white sugar really gives you the difference between what they call like a cakey cookie and a chewy cookie. And most people prefer the chewy cookie. And so if you want the you want more of a chewy cookie, you want to have more brown sugar than white sugar. Likewise, if you want it to be more of a cakey cookie, you do the opposite and do more white sugar than brown sugar. And it's really no more than just mixing these together, creaming them together, as you could say. And then once we do that, we mix in a couple of eggs. And as I mentioned, it's really as easy as that. So this whole oh, and also some vanilla extract. And yeah, this whole this whole cookie only has like either 6 or 7 ingredients. So, which shows you again how easy it is. As much as I love making brownies and how delicious brownies are, doing a cookie in cast iron is even easier. And it's really, of course, something that you really should try, whether by yourself or with your kids, because there's really nothing to it. Of course, in my case, I'm still getting stuff all over the place, but that's because I'm really not a professional. Anyways, once we get this thing all mixed together, I hope the butter is softened enough. Maybe I should have melted it, in fact. Well, if need be, I will do what needs to be done. In addition to this, as I mentioned, we got to break all this apart, and we add a couple of eggs. 2 eggs to be precise. Smaller cookie, you only need 1 egg. Off to a great start here. I am so lucky I did not get shell in there for that. Oh boy. This was a bad batch of eggs. So we got to be really careful here. That's a little better. Now let's clean up my mess a little bit. So it goes, and that's what I get from doing this live rather than on a pre-recorded and edited video, in which you get to see all these fun little foibles. I'm presuming that this has probably happened to at least some folks in the kitchen, and I'm sure they can tell you that really, as long as you're careful, it's not that big of a deal. But so it goes. That's what I get for trying to cook live, as opposed to simply standing here and talking about cast iron. And speaking of which, now, as I mentioned already, the Walmart cookie, as I said, was $9. And really, what's the point of spending $9 on a much smaller cookie that's nowhere near as good as this, when it's really this easy to make it yourself, especially if you have a large cast iron pan. And as I mentioned already, I showed you Stumpy, and Stumpy is hardly the only large cast iron pan that's out there. I very, very much encourage everyone to get at least 1 large cast iron pan, because really the question comes up is, am I ever going to use this huge thing? And in my experience, at least, the answer to that, oh, by the way, notice how this is actually stirring up, so the butter is softened. My answer to that is actually yes. You will get use out of at least 1 large cast iron pan. I'm not saying you have to do a whole huge collection. Pardon me. But having one, there are indeed plenty of uses for it. As I mentioned with old Stumpy there, he has made a lot of cookies like this. He's made pizzas. He's cooked Thanksgiving turkeys. I have brought him on road trips to be able to show him off and use him as a griddle so that I can, I've been able to cook breakfast for when I took him to my friends in New York, for example. And I'm sure there are many, many other uses you could get, especially if you are the type who might say do more oven cooking or outdoor cooking, and you might want to get yourself a big Dutch oven rather than a cast iron skillet. Of course, the nice thing about a skillet like that is, again, it serves a dual purpose, or more than a dual purpose, because again, it makes a great baking sheet. It, as I said, it's a pizza pan as well as a frying pan. You can bake with it, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing here. And let's get this out of the way. Let me check a couple more comments, if you don't mind. Rob S. made a huge... okay, good. Does not look like we're locked up or anything like that. So baking soda makes the cookie flatter. Well, as I said, I have made cookies without baking soda, and really they were definitely flatter in that case. Again, you want all of the aeration on the inside, and that's really what baking soda does, as it helps it to rise. Bookworm 73, we have a 12-inch pan that we use for different recipes. Exactly. And you, wait, do you actually put garbage in the cookie? Yes, the garbage, as a matter of fact, is going to come in just a couple of minutes. I promise you that. So... oh yes, and the trivets as well. So my BS&R story is a long story. Well, I don't mind hearing it. So if you want to mention it, I mean, please feel free to let everybody know. So I will say again, yes, Jucifer, we are going to be putting garbage in this cookie, or more precisely, junk food. So no, I don't mean like trash, but I mean, as I said, leftover Easter candy, which is, but the reason why they call it a garbage cookie, of course, is just that, because, it's not healthy for you. Well, of course not. It's a big cookie. You don't make big cookies to be healthy. You make them because they're delicious, because you want to show off, you want to entertain your kids. And sometimes you just need yourself a big freaking cookie. Anyway, the wet ingredients are pretty much as simple as that. Then from here, let me move a couple of these things over as well. We take our dry ingredients, which, as I mentioned, is really no more than the mixed flour, and add the wet ingredients to it carefully. And since this is cookie dough, the batter is, of course, much, much thicker than cake batter or brownie batter, because, again, we do want this to be a dough. So because of this, I have learned from experience that I can start out using a spatula, but eventually at one point, and in a couple of minutes, I'm going to have to switch over and use my hands. And that's why I took the brace off. Oh yeah, this is, the smell of this by itself is like, as I said, if you do have kids, you'll probably be tempted to sample it right now. So anyway, it's really no more than just a matter of folding everything in and making sure you get everything all mixed together. What we'll end up with is something of a, well, pretty shaggy mess, because there's not a lot of liquid in here. As I said, this is not going to be a batter. So, but even so, all we have to do is just try to mix it up as best as possible, which only takes a couple of minutes. Then after that, we will get down to some real kneading, as you knead the dough, because yes, I would say we certainly do need this dough. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Um, okay, as I mentioned before, cast iron pans. Again, I do encourage everybody to get at least one. As I said, a big cast iron pan, even like a 15-inch skillet, is very easy to get, regardless of how much you want to spend on it. On one hand, they sell them. Walmart, of course, sells their Asian-made Ozark Trail brand, so that you can get a huge 15-inch cast iron skillet under their brand for less than $20. As they say, of course, you get what you pay for, but it's still a cast iron pan. And so that means you are still going to get yourself a pretty decent value for your money. On the other hand, you can even go a step higher, and even though it's still Asian made, you could get one from Camp Chef, or even at Cabela's, for instance. They also sell their own house brand, which is made by Camp Chef. Or likewise, there are other modern day manufacturers, Asian made, admittedly, like Bayou Classic, Cajun Cookers. They all sell these huge cast iron skillets, and in fact 15 inches is nowhere near the largest skillet that they have. You can get yourself a 20-inch skillet from say Bayou Classic, for instance, which has two handles on it, and then in that case you better be careful that it's not too big for your stove. And what can you use a 20-inch skillet for? Well, you can make a really, really, really big cookie or pizza, although what it really excels at as well is being an outdoor cooker. I mean, it's a raised griddle. I mean, it's got a rim on it so that there is much less chance if you do big stir fries or any other kind of cooking on it, there's much less chance that anything is going to spill off over the edge. So really, having one of those things for outdoor cooking is certainly worth it if you do a lot of outdoor cooking. And I've already about reached the point here where I think I'm going to have to put this aside and really start digging in with my hands, which of course I washed beforehand. Anyway, it's, as I mentioned, it's really as simple as this. All we have to do at this point is just knead it all together until the cookie dough comes together and it is not seriously sticking to my hands, which will happen in only a couple of minutes. I can pretty much reassure you of that. This is where having the softened butter is really important, by the way. But I mean, it is starting to come together already, as you can see. And again, this is not difficult at all. And this is much easier to handle with your hands than a cookie dough mix. So that's another reason why I really encourage you to make this from scratch. As you can see, it's only a few ingredients, most of which you probably have at home already. The cream of tartar is optional. I find the baking soda is not optional, though. So, I mean, it's really no more than flour, sugar, eggs, baking soda. Oh, and I did forget a crucial ingredient. My bad. Vanilla extract. Well, we will just have to fake it and put a little bit in. There you go. That actually helps to moisten it up a little bit as well, so that's also good. But yeah, vanilla extract, of course, is what helps give the cookie its unique taste. And that's another thing I like making from scratch, and I've been doing so for the past several years now. I made a point of making the initial investment in making my own vanilla extract, and I have not regretted it because it means I always have pretty much an unlimited supply of what I think is the best vanilla extract on the planet. When you make it homemade, it is, again, far better than pretty much anything you can buy, and definitely less expensive than what you get at the store, where these days you're talking like a 2-ounce bottle of vanilla extract going for $10, $11, $12. Something like this would probably cost $20 to $30 at the supermarket these days. So as you can see, though, this cookie dough is definitely coming together at this point, and this is how easy it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're almost at the point now where it will be time to add the garbage. To be fair, I think this might actually be a wee bit dry. Usually my cookie dough does not have a problem sticking together. Might be because of those eggs. Okay. Well, if I were to moisten this, I'd only want to use maybe a drop or so, and really no more than that. So, because although it does seem to be actually holding together nicely. Even so, I think I may want to cheat a little bit and add to this just a wee bit of all things, Crisco, because Crisco is not entirely liquid. So I think we may be able to fake it by mixing in just a bit. Cookie to dry out as it bakes. Oh yeah, this is definitely mixing in nicely now. I think that was all I needed. As you can see, this is holding together nicely. I suppose I could have used more butter too, but this is doing much better now. Or maybe even, and I wish I'd thought of it now, some more of that margarine spread, which I've talked about, that is not really margarine. It is spread, a vegetable oil spread, but it's not margarine. However, this is definitely holding together nicely now, and I'm glad I did that. I think that was the right step. Okay, because now at this point, I think we are ready to add ourselves some garbage. Hello. My roommate is in the other room right now. She's taking care of the wild animals, and I very much appreciate that. Okay, let me quickly do this. Check a couple more comments because I really don't want you people to, all you nice folks, to be left behind here. Baking soda needs acid to activate it. Baking powder does not. Yes, indeed. Fortunately, it is activated by using some of the other ingredients, and I believe that includes the eggs in there. Not to mention, well, I don't think there's enough of the vanilla extract to do it, but I would say really the eggs, probably more than anything else, would help with that. Homemade vanilla is so easy, and you can make a huge batch at once. Bookworm 73, definitely. Do you have a preferred beans to vodka ratio for homemade vanilla extract? When I started this, I used the formula of about 1 vanilla bean for every ounce of vodka. That might actually be a little much, but it's made a great vanilla extract for me. I can't remember the ratio. Yeah, like it says, 10 to 12 beans to 4 cups. So again, I'll say again, 1 vanilla bean for each ounce of vodka. Maybe a little less. Where do you get the beans? There is a good place online that is very reliable, provides very high quality beans, and is not too expensive. And that is called Beanilla.com. In fact, let me even type this in here in the comments. Beanilla.com. So I would indeed recommend this for your vanilla extract. Okay, now let me head to the fridge and get the rest of the garbage. And here is the garbage to go into our garbage cookie. Some Kit Kats and Reese's peanut butter cups, the little tiny ones that you get with your Easter candy. Along with that, we've got some Hershey's eggs. And finally, on top of all that, some peanut M&Ms. Come on. I opened this before. Ugh. Oh boy, I can't believe this thing is so hard to open. It's because my hands are slippery here. Come on, let's do this right. There we go. And a little bit of this. There we go. And Jamie just said hi to everyone. But here's our garbage. As you can see, lots of sugary, unhealthy, leftover, delicious Easter candy. And when this cookie is done, it is almost certainly going to be enough to give a sugar rush to a whole classroom full of kindergartners. I'm sure everybody would be just thrilled about that. Oh, have your kids bouncing off the wall on one of these things. Nonetheless, that is how easy it is to make what they call a garbage cookie. Yeah, of course, if you don't want to do a garbage cookie, you could use traditional chocolate chips or nuts or pretty much whatever confection you want to put into your cookie, because it is, oops, something dropped, because it is your cookie. And having done that, now is the time to put this aside quickly. And bring out the star of the show. And that would be our friend Oof. Our friend Oof. Stumpy. Let's move this out of the way. As I mentioned already, number 14 cast iron skillet, or even a number 12, or even an easy 12-inch number 10 skillet is really all you need to make a giant cookie and many, many other things. As I mentioned, Lodge sells them, Asian makers sell them, and I really encourage folks to try getting at least one. Now from here, we'll just put in a little bit more Crisco and grease it up. Because as I said, not only will you be able to use this at Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's a wonderful cast iron baking pan, baking sheet, roasting pan, and frying pan too. But in addition, you'll also get a reputation among your family and friends of being the person who has this big giant cast iron pan, and they will likely want to borrow it or let you come over and use it, which is yet another reason to have one of these things. So I can reassure you that yes, if you get at least one big cast iron pan, you will find uses for it. Anyway, greasing up the pan was as easy as that. And with that, the hard part is over. So now, here comes our cookie dough. Plop. What's more, the amount that I use there will easily fill out this entire pan with little difficulty. I'm betting, in fact, if I had a 16 or 17-inch cast iron pan, the same amount would easily work on that as well. Okay, so it's really just a matter of pushing it down. Gotta be careful here. Unfortunately, as I said, my wrist is still a little bit sensitive, I'm sorry to say. We can spread some of these out and put them on top. some of these on the inside. There we go. And finally, once this is done, it will go into the oven. The oven is preheated to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. A lot of these recipes call for 350 degrees, but again, we're talking on a cookie of this size. We want to cook it more of a, or bake it more of a low and slow, because we don't want to burn the outside and still have an undercooked inside. So, because of this, I do 300 for a cookie of this size. I do 325 degrees Fahrenheit for maybe 40 to 45 minutes, which is really all we need. And as you can see, again, there was no difficulty at all filling this pan with that cookie dough. It easily reaches to the sides with no difficulty. And here I am pushing it down nice and hard because, again, that baking soda will activate and it will cause this to rise. As I said, I think it's the eggs in this really that are more activate the baking soda more than anything else. Of course, eggs are a leavener as well, not to mention a binder. But look at that. There we go. We've got our garbage cookie. So from here, all we do now, let me move these over so that they're not touching the edge. I don't want them to, burn or anything like that. But nonetheless, there it is. Cast iron, lift it this way. Cast iron garbage cookie. 15 inches. And to think something nowhere near this big, again, would cost you at least $9 or more at Walmart. And all this is leftover Easter candy. So you did spend money on the Easter candy, but the leftover Easter candy was, nothing. Not to mention flour, and as I said, only several other ingredients. So from here, in we go, carefully, very carefully. That looks like I better raise that rack. In fact, forgot that. This rack is down on the bottom here. I think I want to bring this up one. There we go. Now at last, cookie goes into the oven carefully. There we go. And we're in. And with that, it is 8:38, so that there is a chance this thing could be done by maybe 20 past 9 to 9:30. Let me do one other thing and just quickly wash my hands. Let me wash my hands. Pardon me for turning my back on you for just a moment. Jamie says hi. Oh, that's okay. And
I fell asleep with some Hershey's eggs and some Robin's eggs in my left pocket, and there's Emma's in the bed.
Oh dear.
No, I'm notorious for falling asleep with chocolate in my pocket. So this isn't anything new. This isn't, as you can tell by Eric's lack of shock.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I preheated my pan while I made my brownie. Is that wrong? Well, I have found that it's not necessary because I think it might perhaps overcook the brownie in that respect. Let me see. Oh man, that's a lot of candy. It sure is. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Vanilla pricing is really good, and they have different varieties as well. Best wrist exercises, just use it doing everyday chores, which is what I intend to do. Costco actually has had vanilla beans. I bought some a few months ago and made a small batch. I'm cooking. I want a cookie. I'm cooking one tomorrow for sure. And again, I highly recommend it because, as I said, it's easy to make brownies, but it's even easier to make one of these cookies. So, I mean, this is, um, again, it's, oh, yes.
My brownies are pretty easy though.
Well, your brownies are very easy, yes. So, I mean, Papa Dan liked them when he made them for his kids. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind, or anybody wouldn't mind. Again, this is really almost the perfect recipe to make with your kids. I mean, you saw how easy that is. It only took a few minimal ingredients. And as long as you watch over the oven, there shouldn't be any difficulty at all. And besides, it's also an excuse to use up that so-called leftover Easter candy.
Yeah, that way you can stop hearing from your kids, can I have a piece of candy?
Yeah.
Can I have a piece of candy?
She-
Can I have a piece of candy? And it'll be gone a lot faster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I went out looking for leftover Easter candy. Here is a fact, and I can say this because maybe about 10, good grief, is it really going on almost 15, 20 years ago? Oh, I'm old. Anyway, at that time in the early 2000s, I did work at CVS. I worked at a CVS in the mall, in fact. It was a part-time job for a while. I was working a second job, and I learned some of the evil secrets of CVS, namely, number one, yes, it's true, as you know, when the holidays are over, such as Easter or Halloween, yes, they do hide the best the best candy. They do take it back. I'm not sure if they ship it back to their shipper or supplier or what it is, but a lot of it they do take it back. And these days as well, when I looked in CVS, I found that while they did have some Easter candy, it was only 33% off, not even half off. So then I went to Wally World, and there they had some of their Easter candy, which was in fact half off. So that was a little better. So I mean, the pickings really for leftover Easter candy are not what they used to be. Not unless you know where to go, like maybe you have like a local market or something like that. Okay. Abstruse moose. Okay, I've seen enough. It's time for me to break out my 14 and make my own cookie. You will not regret it. Again, this is the type of thing. Imagine making one of these for somebody's birthday or as a present. I mean, that is something you can lay out as a centerpiece. I've made a big cast iron cookie each year, for instance, for my godson's birthday party. So it was a pizza party, and I contributed a big cookie. Although I did make sure to actually make it and put it out right at the beginning for people to snack on from the beginning, because I didn't want it to compete with the birthday cake. You know, being fair is fair. So, let me get back to that again. As I mentioned, big cast iron pans, because, as I said, Stumpy there is a BS&R. Lodge, of course, has 15-inch cast iron skillets. They still sell them today. Depending on where you go, you can get them at a reasonable price. I have seen the Lodge 15-inch on sale at Marshall's, for instance, Marshall's TJ Maxx for maybe about $40. And for a Lodge brand pan, that's a pretty good price. And not to mention, on the vintage hunt, of course, sometimes you may indeed get lucky, and you might be able to find a 14 from any number of brands. Like, for instance, unmarked Wagner pans. In that size, yeah, they are very rare, but they can still be found. I actually stumbled across one myself at an antique store here in Massachusetts, maybe about 2 to 3 years ago, in fact. So I was surprised as well, and it only had a $40 price tag. So all of the vintage manufacturers did in fact make 14 size skillets. Not very common, but they were out there. Lodge, Birmingham Stove and Range, Griswold is famous for you can see a number 14 Griswold. You can even see a number 20 Griswold on places like eBay for going for maybe $1,000. Wagner made them. I have actually seen photos of a number 14 Wapak or Wapik. I still don't know how that's pronounced. Number 14 size skillet. Once and only once on eBay, I actually saw a number 14 sized gate marked skillet. You know, the kind that you usually see in the maybe number 7 or number 8 size. Very thin, very light, often has a fancy handle, very thin, and with a gate mark on the bottom and no other identifier mark. Only once have I seen a photo of a number 14 size of those. Strangely enough, cast iron spiders have often been seen in the 12-inch size. Once in a great while, I've seen, you know, the three-legged skillet, the camp skillet. And once in a while, they might be found in a 14 size, but the 12-inch is actually fairly common. And a 12-inch is a nice size too. If you can't find or don't have a room for a number 14, there's really no reason why you can't go for a 12-inch, which is essentially a number 10 size, or even maybe if you're lucky, a number 12 size, which is about maybe 13 inches in size. Those size numbers, of course, that is a story in itself. I mean, it's been pointed out as well. You know, size numbers do not mean diameter. Those who are new to cast iron, that's one of the first things you learn, that a number 8 size pan is actually about 10 inches in diameter at the top. And the reason why, of course, they were originally designed to fit a stove eye, which was like a number 8. What I found, though, actually, is that it's actually a pretty good size marking for the flat cooking surface, in that a number 8 cast iron skillet is about 10 inches in diameter at the top, but the pan itself, the cooking surface, is maybe a little bit more than 8 inches in diameter. So that might be something to consider, perhaps. Andrew Bonificio, how'd that Wellington turn out a couple of weeks ago? It actually turned out pretty darn good. I did, in fact, post a link to the unveiling video. I posted the video on my Facebook page, and on that, on the description of the live, or the comments of the live video where we did that, I did show the results. It turned out pretty darn good, in fact. The inside was well done, which is what I wanted, because we were talking ground beef, and it had a nice, interesting pink ring all around the edges, which I was told that had to do with the nitrates in the bacon that I wrapped it in. So all told, as I said, I really don't have any complaints about that, especially since that was my very first time doing a Wellington. But yes, we ended up eating the whole thing there. And as such, I definitely do. If you do a Wellington, I'll say this again as well. You've seen some of those viral videos where they make a burger Wellington or some other kind of a Wellington, and all they do is stuff the thing with cheese and then wrap it in pastry and bake it that way. Well, you can do that, but please, I learned, do not skip the mushroom duxelle. That's that layer of chopped up and ground up and mushrooms that are then mixed in with liquid to make something like a paste, and you wrap that in around the entire Wellington before you wrap that in pastry. The mushroom duxelle was much easier to make than I thought, and oh man, the taste of that was unbelievable. It really brought the whole thing up a notch. So again, do not skip making the mushroom duxelle if you do a Wellington. I mean, it will be far better than what you see with those viral videos. You can still stuff it with cheese if you want, but do not skip the layer of mushroom duxelle. Time has a way of flying by. Yeah, tell me about it. We are at 48 minutes into this already. Terry Sinchef, I have a 14-inch Wagner. Now I have to make a big cookie. You will not regret it. Might I ask as well, I'm hoping you are getting use out of a 14-inch Wagner. As I have said, and I meant it, that you can get a lot of use out of it. Again, not only is it good for frying on the stovetop, it's also a great roasting pan. It's also a great pizza pan. I always make my Thanksgiving and Christmas turkeys in the number 14 because, as I said, it's the world's best roasting pan. And again, it's really something you do not want to miss come the holidays or any other time of the year. And that doesn't even get into Dutch ovens. And when we get into that size, which I know are very heavy, often very expensive, and very hard to find if you look on the vintage route. But one way or another, if you feel you have a use for it, I would still encourage you to go for at least one big cast iron pot. If you really are just getting into this and you're not sure when you want a big pan, you're not sure if you want to go for a big Dutch oven or a big skillet, I might suggest the big skillet first. Largely because, of course, you've got to find room to store that big pot. And although a big enamel pot, again, is probably the best thing in the world for making sauces, like, something up?
Keys. I'm going to bring Travis is going to school tomorrow for the first day.
Sounds good.
Back to school tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Maybe we should give him some of this cookie to bring in.
Well, he's got to go to bed right now. So
okay.
He goes to bed very early.
So. Okay. All right. Anyway, I use my 14 primary for pizza, cookies, and massive burrito mix. I highly recommend getting one. Bruce Moose. Yes, exactly. That's the point. I mean, again, people ask, what am I going to use this big thing for? As you demonstrate, you will get a lot of use out of it. I mean, that I think is really what I'm trying to get at in this video more than anything else. You will get a lot of use out of a big cast iron pan.
One thing real quick.
Yes. Yes.
Wait, remember these masks? Do you remember where you got them from?
No, I actually got them at Family Dollar. In fact, they sold them. Okay. Well, they're just Hanes. They come in. Yeah, they come in 3-packs. You could get it at Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you want to give those, we can always get more.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I don't find them, I'm gonna.
Duxelle. That's how you pronounce it. Duxelle. Well, thank you very much for telling me that. I honestly did not know because, as I've said enough times, I'm really just an amateur at this. Never went to culinary school, so I recognize I've mispronounced a lot of things. But apparently, the mushroom layer in the Wellington is the Duxelle. Duxelle, not Duxelle, as I was pronouncing it. So. I use my 14 up, though. This is my first time trying my recipe. Well, as I found out tonight, I mean, usually when I make that dough, it usually comes out just fine. In this case, I actually had to add a little bit more moisture, and that's why I mixed in a little bit of Crisco to go with it. Though you might want to mix in maybe some butter or butter spread even. I do not recommend using liquid, and it would be tempting to just use milk, but no, again, you are not making a batter, you are making a dough, so you don't want to use liquid for that, and I think that, in fact, gave it just the right consistency to it, so. Peg Tooth, sorry that I'm late. Well, I'm always glad to see you again, so, I mean, yes, Peg Tooth, and Jamie says, "What up?" Yeah. I also leave the huge pan in the oven, and the kids heat up frozen food in it all the time. Well, again, there you go. And Garway, what size griddle would you recommend for a standard gas stovetop? If you're talking a long griddle, they usually come in a standard size these days, which is maybe about 15 to 18 inches long or so. And in fact, I can lift this. Give me a second. Let me get this because we're talking about big cast iron pans. Let me get one of them. Here is something else I have also used quite a bit. Here we are. BS&R Birmingham Stove and Range Sportsman Fish Fryer, which also makes a really great 2-burner griddle. This thing is maybe about 17 or 18 inches long rather. It's only about 9 inches wide or so, but it fits perfectly on 2 burners of the stovetop, whether you have electric or a gas burner. So, given that, as I said, maybe about 18 inches wide or so. long, I should say. That's a decent size for a griddle. They may come a lot wider. I've got a much wider cast iron griddle that I've used several times as well. But really, when it comes to that kind of thing on my stovetop with the way I cook, I get a lot of use out of that BS&R fish fryer, and I do not regret it. Essentially, it is a really long two-burner griddle. So, okay, sorry. A round griddle. Well, the thing about a round griddle, again, whether you use it on a gas stove or an electric stove, you have to consider that there will be hot spots and cold spots just from the way your oven is, your stovetop is. I mean, whether or not it's gas or electric, you figure the part that's covered by that actually contacts the burner, or that the gas and the flame directly contacts, this will definitely be the hottest part. If you end up getting a larger griddle, like maybe a 10-inch or even worse, a 12-inch, as you can see, it's there's the part that does not contact, it is going to have a much cooler spot, which you can take advantage of. Now, if you're using a number 14 size griddle, or skillet, the way Stumpy works, you can put it on 2 burners, with the consideration, of course, again, that the parts that contact the burners will be much hotter than the parts over here and over here. They will still heat up slowly and eventually, but they will still not be as hot as the parts that are contacting the burners here. And as I said, that's the same with electric or gas. Of course, as folks know as well, you can take advantage of that. Like, say, when cooking eggs, for instance, you can cook eggs in the hot spot and then move it over to the cool spot while you then cook bacon to go with the eggs, which is a pretty standard trick, technique, I should say, for cooking on a griddle or even on a stovetop. Terry that's a nice camping griddle. Yes, it is. That comes from the Birmingham Stove and Range Sportsman Grill. Oh yeah, I think I'll mention this. I am not privy to inside information from Lodge Cast Iron, but as you know, Lodge has introduced a new version of their grill this year. Oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it. But it's, what is it called? Like Kick It Up Grill or something? I honestly don't remember. Oh, I should have prepared for this, but someone may be able to post the name of it. I'm hoping. No, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. The Sportsman Grill, the very well-known Lodge so-called hibachi, which they've never called a hibachi, but it's the Sportsman Grill that originally came from Birmingham Stove and Range. It used to have that fish fryer on the top, but since discontinued it. Anyway, as you know, every year, Lodge discontinues the Sportsman Grill in the fall and reintroduces it again in the spring, because of course, most of the outdoor cooking is done, not all of it, but a lot of it is done during the spring and summer and fall. I'm hoping that they are not discontinuing the Sportsman Grill in order to promote their new grill, their new round grill, which actually does look very nice. On the other hand, I will say that. I mean, they've got their marketing reasons, and if in fact they discontinue the Sportsman Grill even temporarily, well, that of course means that the price is going to go up on those things this year. But nonetheless, I mean, that doesn't. I'd be interested in seeing if folks give that new Lodge grill a try. The Kickoff Grill. That's it. Kickoff. What did I say? Kick it up. Like kick it up a notch. But yeah, the Kickoff Grill. It is rounded rather than oval shaped. So that's something to look into. I myself am probably not going to get it because, as I've mentioned enough times, I live in an apartment in the middle of the city, and coal cooking is unfortunately not something that's very convenient for me. I mean, I could do it easily enough, but it's not like I can just simply go out in the backyard and do some coal cooking as much as I'd like to. So, Yeah, Terry Shinchef. I stripped off an old unmarked number 8 Dutch oven, and it's in the oven getting its first seasoning. It's in good company. My brother's number 3 Lodge 1 notch is getting a seasoning too. Wow, it sounds like you've found yourself a couple of good scores there. An unmarked number 8 Dutch oven. Based on the markings, of course, we'd be able to tell if it might be Lodge or BS&R or maybe even something else. But yeah, I mean, a number 8 Dutch oven, that's your standard 4 to 5 quart Dutch oven, which you will get a ton of use out of. I've been talking all this time about those really, really big cast iron pans. But of course, you know, something like that, a number 8 size Dutch oven, that's the type of thing that will practically never leave your stove because you will use it all the time. You can use it for frying. You can use it for deep frying. You can use it for baking, roasting. And I really do recommend using a bare iron Dutch oven because a whole lot of things you can do with that. Yes, enamel will also has its advantages, but really you simply cannot sear better than on bare cast iron. So a lot of cooking and roasting will work even better in a bare cast iron Dutch oven, and I certainly recommend it. And congratulations to you on your number 8. I leave the huge pan in the oven. Oh yeah, that's what we said. What's a good size skillet for omelets? Well, for omelets, I mean, besides a number 8, you could probably even use a smaller size one for omelets. Maybe a number 5 might be perhaps a little small, and I might even recommend going out of your way looking for maybe a number 7 size skillet, or even a chef's skillet if you can find one. Whether or not they make them from carbon steel or cast iron, because again, you get just the right size for an omelet with maybe a vintage number 7 size cast iron pan, which is about 9 inches. Again, that's larger than a number 5, which is 8 inches, and number 7 is about 9 or so inches in diameter, and a number 8 is about 10 inches in diameter. A number 8, a standard 10-inch skillet, will work just fine for omelets. I have made quite a few omelets with my Lodge number 8 10-inch skillets. So so if you want to do an omelet, I mean, just your standard cast iron pan. But if you can find one that's maybe a wee bit smaller, like a number 7 size, that might even be better when it comes to omelets. And I do hope that helps. So the cookie is baking in the oven. We still have probably at least another 20 minutes or so to go. But at this point, let me see. Since I brought it up already, let me see. What do I have here? I've got, oh, yeah, as a matter of fact, good grief. This thing is actually 5 years old now. Yes, and when it comes to omelets, here is, for instance, the number 5, which might be just a wee bit too small. This, in fact, is a Lodge pan number 5 that they made for their 120th anniversary. And guess what? They're now at their 125th anniversary. So I would not be surprised if this year we see a 125th anniversary pan from Lodge. Will I get it? To be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, I already have a 120. Yeah, I had used this for softening the butter, so there's a little bit of butter residue in here to be cleaned off. And okay, can I use a Wagner Magna roaster as a Dutch oven for baking bread in the oven? Well, I certainly don't see why not. Again, the difference is that aluminum transfers the heat of the oven, whereas cast iron, retains heat. And I think that's the reason why most people do prefer cast iron when it comes to baking. But there's no reason why you can't do that, because after all, they do sell aluminum bread pans. So I would indeed say give it a try. I mean, there's really no reason not to. Speaking of big cast iron pans, let's see what else we have here to suggest for folks. Give me one very quick second. And, oh yes, here it is. I mentioned this one as well when it comes to big cast iron pans, and this, of course, is a good old number 10 size. In this case, this is the number 10 size BS&R, Birmingham Stove and Rage Century Series skillet, which is, of course, actually more than 12 inches in diameter. They made a point of that. This thing is 12 and 7/16 inches in diameter, so we're talking just very slightly less than 12 and a half inches, but it's certainly big enough so that even if you don't have a number 14 size cast iron pan, well, something like this should work just fine if you want to make yourself a really nice big cookie in this thing. So this, as I mentioned, is probably the size of that cookie that I saw at Walmart for $9. And on my website, in fact, where I have the recipe for the cookie, I should have included a link to it in the description. I can't believe I forgot. But if you go to my website and just look for a giant cookie, you will certainly find it. Not to mention the other cookie videos I have here on my YouTube channel. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Walmart. No, on my website, I actually have the ingredients in two parts. One is for a large 14-inch pan. Another is one with reduced ingredients so that you can make it in a more standard 10-inch or even 12-inch pan. And there is so much dough produced that, as I mentioned, you know how the dough easily filled up that 14-inch skillet, 15-inch skillet, and I could have easily used it in a larger skillet. Likewise, the amount of dough that you make for a 10-inch pan, you can easily stretch it out and fill a 12-inch pan so that you will have that same kind of a cookie that you see at Walmart for $9. I know I keep going $9, but really, I did not use $9 worth ingredients to make that huge cookie that I'm using here, that I'm making here, and neither would you. I mean, as I said, all you need are flour. If you're doing a smaller pan, you can do it with 1 egg, sugar, chocolate chips, or any kind of filling you want. A little bit of, as I mentioned, a little bit of baking soda, and I said the eggs already, and you crick it and you mix it all together, and bam, you've got yourself a giant cookie. It's also the reason why, you know how at Christmas now they're selling those little tiny little $5 cookie skillets, which come with awful cookie mix. If you got one of those and you now have yourself a tiny little cast iron pan, well, here you go. Here's an excuse to use it and make your own homemade cookie dough. I mean, really, as I said, homemade cookie dough is so easy. Anyone can do it, and it's much better than the stuff that comes in those. I just bought a 12-inch cast iron skillet at Walmart for $9. Wow. I'm betting that must be their Ozark Trail brand. Well, nothing wrong with that. Get a lot of use out of it. Make yourself a cookie. Do a lot of frying with it. Basically, the short answer is enjoy more than anything else. So, yeah, number 5, perfect for 2 eggs sunny side up. 9 is the highest whole number. Whole number. That's something I might get into a discussion about at some other time. However, what it really comes down to is, as I said in the beginning, and what I've been trying to say again and again, is that a large cast iron pan is certainly something you should consider. I'm not saying that you have to fill up your whole kitchen with an enormous collection of cast iron, but really, even if you have like maybe a skillet, a Dutch oven, at some point or another, get yourself at least one large cast iron pan, whether it's a big skillet or a big griddle or a big Dutch oven. You will not regret it. You will get a lot of use out of it. And above all else, it's a lot of fun to use. I cannot recommend it highly enough. You will enjoy it. You will be able to make things for your friends and family. They will really get a kick out of having, say, their Thanksgiving turkey served in one of those huge pans, for instance. And they're also very easy to get if you look for the modern ones. And depending on your budget, you can pretty much score a large pan in one way or another, no matter whether you want to spend $20 or less or $200 or more. Of course, if you spend $200 or more, you better hope you're getting your money's worth out of it. 9 is the cube of 3. All right. We are getting on at this point, and it has been about an hour and 10 minutes or so. I mean, I'm thinking that cookie should probably come out of the oven maybe in about another 10 minutes or so. I mean, I could keep rambling on for the next 10 minutes, and then we can reveal the cookie and see what happens. In which case, then well, okay. Okay, well, at this point, as I mentioned all of these, I have not yet even mentioned Dutch ovens or even gone much for outdoor cooking. I mentioned briefly the large Sportsman grill and their new kickoff grill. But of course, if you've got yourself a Dutch oven, really, you're probably going to want to go for a big Dutch oven one way or another anyway. I believe the standard size for outdoor cooking really would be a 12-inch Dutch oven right there. And if you're really lucky, you may be able to score yourself a number 14 size Dutch oven. Or if you're extremely lucky and you can find it in the vintage market, you can get something even larger than that. Lodge used to produce a number 16 size Dutch oven, but they've discontinued it. I've heard rumors that they might even be discontinuing their number 14 size Dutch oven. Well, that's their decision, whether or not we agree with that. On the other hand, Asian makers still make these huge Dutch ovens, much bigger than the ones that Lodge ever made. And again, if you go in the vintage market, you never know what you can find. I have a BS&R number 12 Dutch oven, which I have used regularly for making huge pots of Boston baked pork and beans. The Boston Marathon, actually, this is the second year in a row, sadly, that the Boston Marathon has been canceled in April, but they are going to try once again to hold it here in Boston in October. And if that's the case, I certainly intend on making a big pot of pork and beans to go with it. I'm just starting to smell the cookie now, so yeah, I'd say it will certainly be done in a little less than 10 minutes. Do you need to be concerned about using cast iron over an open fire? No, I'd say that's what it was originally designed for. Okay. On the cast iron cooking group, and I myself have mentioned before, don't throw your cast iron into a fire. That's because an uncontrolled fire really has a chance of damaging and permanently damaging it. But throwing it into a fire, or even thrusting it into the coals, as they say, is not the same thing as simply cooking over an open fire. Number one, I mean, even that little bit of difference in itself is enough to really ensure that you're not going to damage your pan. Not unless you really build yourself up a big roaring fire, but hopefully for your campfire, you're not necessarily going to do that. As long as you keep your campfire under control and you keep your grill a decent distance away from the fire, then there's no trouble at all with using cast iron over an open fire. And as I said, that's really what it was made for. Cooking stoves were not really introduced and didn't become popular until the middle or the later part of the 19th century, the 1800s. And for hundreds of years, really, the hearth, the fireplace, was what you cooked dinner in. And so, of course, you had to cook your pans over put your pans over the fire for that. So I would not be concerned about using cast iron over an open fire. And as I've said with other things, go for it because you will have a lot of fun. If you're really concerned about damaging your great-grandmother's precious skillet, well, then don't use it over a fire. You can easily get a modern day cast iron pan just to bring out for camping, for instance. And that way, if something were to happen to, say, a $10 pan from Big Lots or Walmart, you would not, it's hardly the same as maybe something happening to your great grandmother's precious skillet if you brought it out camping in the woods. Could we maybe do a show and tell episode? People who are interested can send pictures of cast iron we have for interest in discussion. That actually sounds like a pretty good idea, and I would very much be interested in that. I think maybe I'll see if I can manage that, in which I can encourage folks to email or post pictures, because as I said, I do have a Facebook group. I have not yet been able to figure out how to do photos here, unfortunately, in this YouTube feed, but I should probably look into that. I mean, I know that there's a lot of software out there that lets you do a picture in a picture on this YouTube feed, and I'm certainly looking forward to doing it. Okay, so far so good. The view count is dropping slightly because, of course, we have been here for an hour and 15 minutes, and I certainly understand that. Nor do I regret anyone who feels, that I've rambled on long enough. About the only reason I'm staying on at this point is because in about 5 minutes or so, I am going to unveil the cookie. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, I smell cookie. I don't blame you. I smell cookie, and I wouldn't be surprised if you smell it too. In fact, as Jamie likes to say, when you can smell it, it's done, and it probably will be done. So okay, I will give it just a couple more minutes, and then we will show ourselves off a garbage cookie. Don't be a square. Can you recommend a small smoker for outdoors? I have very little experience, as I've said, unfortunately, with outdoor cooking for smoking and grilling, so I really don't have a lot of experience with that. I would, in fact, suggest there is a Facebook group especially for outdoor grilling called Cast Iron Grill and Hibachi World, and that's certainly worth looking at. So, don't be a square. You were talking about the math. That's what you meant about that. The big ones are great when camping because they'll sit on 3 stones and give a large cooking surface for a big meal. Absolutely. And in fact, you can get yourself you can even use most of the time, you can even use the underside of the lid as a griddle in itself. A curved griddle, but still a good one. Yard stream is an often used application that allows interlacing pictures. I definitely have to look into something like that. I'm glad to say now that ever since I upgraded the RAM in my laptop here, there does not seem to have been any lockups, or I have not lost the feed, thank goodness. I believe last week there was a little bit of a pause in the feed at one point, but we didn't lose it, and that does not appear to have happened this time tonight. So I will have to look into that peg, yard stream, as you're saying. So we'll see how that turns out. But I do like your idea of folks sending in pictures for a show and tell, and I would indeed like to see how we might be able to manage it. At this point, I figure I might as well take a chance and let's unveil ourselves a cookie, shall we? Worst comes to worst, I could always put it back in the oven, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. Which means I can only thank everybody for waiting this long, because now comes the moment of truth, as they say. And away we go. Let's move this thing out of the way again. Just get to our oven. And where did I put that glove? Where did I put that glove? Oh, here it is. Drum roll, please. Ta-tam. And voila. Actually, I goofed. I need the other pot holder. One hand will not do it. There it is. And now at last, here is our giant garbage cookie. Let me change the view over. Actually, let's bring this out first. Oh yeah. Now let's bring this over and get ourselves what they call the money shot. Thank you, everybody, for waiting this long, because there it is. Cooked in a 15-inch BS&R cast iron skillet. Best I could say is Stumpy did it again. Oh, yeah, it's definitely too hot right now to cut it would fall apart. But all we have to do is really let this thing rest for maybe about 10, maybe 15 minutes or more. And we will have ourselves a cookie. The edges are browned, they're not burned. And yeah, you can see how the candy has melted. So this is what we get where, and I'll say it for the last time, as opposed to spending $9 at Walmart for a 12-inch cookie. We've got ourselves a huge, giant cookie stuffed to the brim with Easter candy. You really can't do much better than that, can you? All right. And having said that, can you say hi, River? Hi, River. Practice some funny Justin Wilson stories in the meantime while waiting for food cooking. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, yeah, April of 2011, 10 years ago, in fact, there were a couple of interesting stories that happened in that time, not the least of which was I originally founded the Cast Iron Cooking Group for the first time. So that may very well be something to talk about next week, the 10th anniversary. It started out as a Facebook page, and then a year later, I canceled the page and turned it into a group. So that may very well be the subject for next week. In fact, I'm liking that as well. BS&R Red Mountain number 7 is perfect for a 3-egg omelet. Looks good enough to eat. Well, I certainly hope so. And that, as I said, is our garbage cookie made with Easter leftovers. And of course, things are only just beginning as far as cast iron cooking is concerned. As always, I can only thank everybody, though, for staying this long. I mean, once again, we've gone an hour and 20 minutes, and I think I've talked long enough. It is a work night, as I say every time, and so I appreciate everybody for sticking around like this. I'm looking forward, nonetheless, to serving this cookie. As Jamie mentioned, her son is going back to school for the first time tomorrow, so I would maybe want to offer some or maybe even all of this cookie to bring in. Other than that, although because it's a homemade cookie, though, it doesn't have any preservatives, which means I'm going to have to, after it cools off, I am going to have to cover it, because if this thing sits uncovered overnight, by tomorrow it's going to be as hard as a rock. That's one disadvantage of a homemade cookie. You do have to eat it right away, or else you have to wrap it up. It's one thing to consider. Okay, but nonetheless, I can only once again, I can only appreciate very much everyone who showed up, but I am thinking, though, I should indeed mention next week, as I said, I think we will be looking into, and I will promote this on the Cast Iron Cooking Group, too, so I'm hoping that we may have some more people here, which means if we're going to be doing something, something to celebrate the 10th anniversary, we may have to go for something like, I don't know, steak, and see where it goes from there. And that will be next Wednesday. Miss French Twist, hello to see you again. So, hey, everybody. But still, I appreciate everybody for showing up. And thank you for showing up, Miss French Twist. It's always good to see you again. Thank you for watching, everybody. And meanwhile, I guess we can say one more time, enjoy your Cast Iron Wednesday, and see you next week. Oh, where's the cookie? Let me give you one more look at it. Where's the cookie? There's the cookie. A 15-inch cast iron garbage cookie made in Stumpy, my BS&R number 14 Century Series cast iron skillet. Soak the beans a good couple of months. Well, I don't know about a couple of months, but oh, yes, I need this, and so do we. Yes, indeed. That was what we made tonight. A nice 15-inch cookie. And there are videos as well on my website for that. So, yeah, that's a long time. Yeah, I know. We've actually been doing this for 10 years, which is why I am looking forward now to celebrating. See you all next week then, where we will have ourselves some fun and celebration. Have a good night, everyone.